We welcome you back to America's Forum with Miranda Khan, J.D. Hayworth. The president's comments came in India before a U.S. drone strike took out 3 suspected al-Qaeda operatives in Yemen.
Yeah, that strike, the first since the resignation of Yemen's president. Officials say it's a signal the U.S. will continue counterterrorism measures in the country despite a hostile takeover by rebels.
Joining us now for an in-depth analysis, we are so pleased to call upon our good friend, Dr. Robert Rabil, Middle Eastern expert and professor at Florida Atlantic University. Dr. Rabil, so good to have you back.
So good to be here, and thank you.
And as good as it is to have you here, that's as troubling as the situation has grown in Yemen.
In Yemen, yes.
The drone attacks, strong American air presence, arguably, with lethality involved there. But this whole change that we are seeing in government in Yemen with the Houthi rebels, I believe supported by Iran, what does it portend?
Well, it's a very complicated issue now in Yemen. You have different power players on the domestic and on the international and on the regional level. On the regional level, you have Saudi Arabia and Iran, and you are absolutely right in saying that Iran has been supporting the Houthi or the Zaidi Yemeni, the Shia Yemeni. But on the other hand, you have a power play. Let's not forget. I believe that the Houthi wouldn't have been able to take control of the capital without late former President Saleh supporting them in order to use them so as to go against those who oppose them, especially from the Al-Ahmar tribe, who are close to the Islah Party, a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. So what we see in Yemen now, a very complicated situation. And United States really is in a double bind, Congressman. And the only thing United States can do now is really to work with the Saudi to see what we can do inside, extremely important. And second, to continue the air drone attack. Why? Because indeed now what you have an Al-Qaeda present, has been there for quite some time, and it's getting stronger. So no, we are not going to sit back and say, listen, we have a bad situation there, let's have a hands-off approach. No. So you have a very serious situation that needs a regional approach to it, and United States to go and work with our allies.
So I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. Are you saying there's kind of a conspiracy theory going on there?
As a matter of fact, please. In some ways, yes. Let's not forget domestic politics play a key role. I'm not saying Iran has not supported the Houthi. Let's put it in perspective, Miranda and Congressman. The Houthi Yemeni has been calling for their autonomy for quite some time. From 2004 until now, and I would say from 2004 until 2010, you have always an attempt to go ahead and defeat them by central authorities supported by Saudi Arabia. Well, things changed with the Arab rebellion, with the Yemeni rebellion that removed Saleh from power. Now, Saleh in power, when he was in power, he has opposition. Those opposition come from a tribe affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood by the name of the Islah. So he went and he had somehow a kind of a relationship with the Houthi, and he used them to go after his own opponent. But the problem is the Houthi outflanked him and outsmarted him. And they took the capital in September, and now they took the presidential palace.
So in a sense, I don't know so much conspiracy as in, for those of us who are Star Trek fans, you'd see the chess on 3 levels Kirk and Spock would play. Not to trivialize it, but there's a lot going on here. Tribal differences. Theological differences within Islam.
Sectarian, exactly.
And then the overriding thing that we tend to look at as Americans, the geopolitical implications of the Iranians seem to be in there behind the Houthis. Obviously, it's a situation that warrants further watching, greater scrutiny, and further explanation. In fact, we're going to ask you to stay, Dr. Rabil, because when we come back, there's an interesting development elsewhere having to do with ISIS and a location that ISIS has held for a long time that has fallen to the Kurds. We'll talk about that and more with our Middle Eastern expert, Dr. Robert Rabil, as we continue here on America's Forum on Newsmax TV. To continue our conversation with Dr. Robert Rabil, the Middle East expert and professor at Florida Atlantic University. Robert, how significant is this victory by the Kurds over ISIS?
It's extremely significant, and I look at it as a symbol for the future that if you stand in unison, if you stand in unity, male and female, you can do something about this terrible, terrible organization called ISIS. This is how I look at it, and it's a great victory, and kudos for the Kurds.
Do you think that they'll be able to keep control?
Yes, I think if we keep us Americans and our allies striking ISIS, yes, absolutely.
And that is the key, because the strikes, 700 airstrikes in all to push ISIS out of the city. And as the air power is important, but the Kurds were on the ground to get the job done. If you had to split that up, and I know you're not a military strategist, you're a professor of geopolitics, but as you look at this, how important is the air power vis-a-vis the Kurds on the ground?
Well, they are both important. I look at it and I see, one hand complemented the other hand. You need two hands to clap. And this is what happened. So 50-50. They couldn't have done it without the American power and our allies' power, and we couldn't have done it without them on the ground. And this is what I would like to see in the rest of Syria and the rest of Iraq, where you have local forces fighting ISIS, and we are helping from the air.
Why do you think ISIS continues to grow? I mean, it seems like whatever we try to do, it's not enough, and that they just continue to grow in numbers and continue recruiting people all over the world.
Yes.
What do you think is our best defense, I should say?
Our best defense to go and fight ISIS there, but alongside we have to go there and fight their ideology, their radical ideology,
How do
the
you fight
Salafism.
that?
You need Muslim to work with you so as to go and delegitimize it. Let's not forget Salafism, and I spoke about it here more than one time. Salafism appeals to many downtrodden, dispossessed, alienated Muslims throughout the world. They give you they'll tell you, we are authentic Muslim, we are the sect of Islam, we are fighting, Prophet Muhammad told us what to do. So this is how they appeal to Muslims. They empower Muslims. And once they become radical, they move and they become Salafi jihadi and fight. And this is why you need to fight them on the ground militarily, but also you need to fight that radical ideology. And in order to fight that radical ideology, you have to have Muslims. I'll give you for example. For example, you have Al-Azhar University in Egypt. Is an old school, old seminary, Sunni school. This is what I would like him to go and say, listen, ISIS not only doesn't represent Islam, ISIS is a terrorist organization. No Muslim should go and join ISIS. This is what I would like to hear from them, including in Saudi Arabia. They have the Wahhabi Salafi establishment. They should go and don't say, well, we are fighting, Al-Qaeda and ISIS. No, they should say, ideologically, this is bad. This is where you need people.
Do you think that's why people have been... Do you think that's why the president and his administration have refused to actually use the term Muslim terrorist, Islamic terrorist? Do you think that's why?
Well, it's part. I myself and the congressman one time, I still remember when he mentioned, I told him I use the word radical Muslims. They are Muslim, but they are radicals. Now, I don't know why the administration is using these words. They don't want to use violent extremists or extremists. No, you have to call a spade a spade. They espouse a theology which is extremely radical at its core. And it comes from Muslim scripture. They have their own view of it, and their own view or radical view. So call it what it is. This is how I saw it. This is how I write about it.
And Dr. Rabil, you have written that book on Salafism and talk about the distinctions within Islam. It's interesting you use the term radical Islam, and there are some who say that Islam is in need of a reformation. Maybe that'll be something we'll talk about on your next visit. We're back with more on America's Forum. Stay with us.